So hello and welcome everyone to this webinar. Thanks for signing on. My name is Paula Land. And sorry, I will just be showing, I just need to show the correct presentation. There we go. Okay, so hi and welcome everyone. Sorry for this rocky start. My name is Paula Land. Thanks for signing on to this webinar today on about clean and efficient urban freight logistics. This is a webinar that we're holding as part of the CIVITAS Eccentric webinar series. We've already had a couple, you might be familiar with them, or this is the first time you're joining. In any case, I'm very happy that so many people have made it today. I know that some of you are just coming back from holidays. We have a great set of speakers that will be presenting about different aspects of urban freight and logistics from within the Eccentric project, but also we will also have some outside perspectives as well. As I said, my name is Paula Land. I'm moderating the webinar today. I'm working for ICLE Local Governments for Sustainability, which is a global network of cities working in the field of sustainability. We work on mobility, among other things, but also have focuses on all aspects of sustainability. And within the Eccentric project, we are in charge of replication, also organizing these kinds of webinars to share some of the results of this project with you. So before we start, I just want to give you a quick overview of how GoToWebinar works. I would like to share with you the different ways in which you can make use of GoToWebinar to ask your questions, because we want to keep this as interactive as possible. So whenever you have a question, just feel free to jump in and ask. There's different ways in which you can do that. First of all, let me say you're muted from the start, but if you raise your hand, which you can do with this button as indicated here, we can unmute you and you can ask your question directly to the speakers via your microphone. Otherwise, there's also the option to type in your question in written, and then we will make sure that the question gets asked to the speakers and we read it out loud for you. I should also say that this webinar is recorded, so just be aware if you're asking a question, we might also record your voice. Yeah, this is just to let you know the webinar will be put online, so you can share it later with colleagues or rewatch it. So I think that's a good thing to do. But first, before we start with the webinar, let me just have everyone practice the question function. So I would like everyone to just type in the question pane where they're calling in from, which city or which country, and also the weather outside. How many degrees is it where you're calling in from? We are in Freiburg in Germany, which is known for its great weather, but today and yesterday we're having some really, really rainy days. So I think it's maybe just 19 degrees outside currently. So yeah, if everyone who's here can just type in the question pane where they're calling in from and how warm it is outside or how cold, so we get a bit of an idea. All right, we have Madrid with 25 degrees, very nice. Lyon, France, also sunny all around, 25 degrees. We have someone calling in from Brussels, where it's also pretty chilly. Gothenburg, Sweden is 18 degrees. It's the same as here. In Madrid, where it's a bit cloudy. In Tarragona, Spain, it's about 25 degrees. Someone calling in from Dublin. Again, Madrid, very nice. Stockholm, 19 degrees. Okay, so I can see the audience is calling in from all different places. Another caller from Dublin, also a chilly 18 degrees. We have someone from Lisbon. Czech Republic is calling in. Finland, Oulu in Finland. Almada in Portugal, with the best weather that I've seen here so far, 28 degrees. So the award of the warmest place today goes to Almada. Yeah, great. So now that we've practiced how to ask questions, we're all very well prepared to jump right into the webinar. As I've said, the webinar will be recorded. And I want to give you a quick overview of the lineup for today. We have 4 speakers. First off, we will hear from Juan Azcarate from the city of Madrid, who is a Deputy Director General for the Energy and Climate Change, and he is also the work package leader for the work that has been carried out in Eccentric in terms of logistics and freight. We will hear more from him on the Eccentric project and specifically logistics and freight in a minute. We also have with us Enrique Garcia from the city of Madrid, who is in charge of who is working for the climate change department there. With us as well is Rafael Ruiz from ARUP Madrid, where he is the associate director for cities and infrastructure practice. And also with us is Robin Bilchu from the city of Stockholm, where he is an urban freight strategist. Both Enrique and Robin have also been involved in the Eccentric project, and they will tell you more about what their cities have done in Eccentric in this webinar. And Rafael Ruiz is working for ARUP, and he will give us a bit of an insight into the importance of freight and its relation to the Corona crisis, which I think is also really interesting. And as I'm already diving into the content a little bit here, let's have a quick look at the agenda. So we're just in the welcoming part, but after me, I will hand over the word to Juan, and he will be introducing and giving an overview of the Eccentric project, and specifically on clean and efficient urban freight in the Eccentric project. Then we will hear from Rafael. As I've already said, he will be speaking about the importance of freight and its relation to the Corona crisis. Enrique will introduce efficient and clean logistics scheme for freight distribution in Madrid. And Robin will then speak about clean and silent night deliveries as a way to make transport more efficient and cities more livable. After each presentation, there's time for questions. And at the end of the webinar, there will also be some time for general questions. So since we have this wonderful question function, you can also type in your questions whenever you like, and we will make sure these questions get asked to the speakers when there's time for it. Okay, let me give you a quick introduction to the Eccentric project, which is the framework in which we're having this webinar, just so you have an idea what it's all about. Eccentric is an EU-funded mobility project that has been carried out over the course of 4 years. It's now in its final phase and will be concluding soon. So most measures and activities have already been carried out, and we're currently just collecting the learnings, publishing them in so-called replication packages to share the outcomes of this project with the world and potentially with you. So what happened in the Eccentric project? The approach of Eccentric was to have 5 living labs in which the project demonstrates the potential and replicability of integrated and inclusive urban planning approaches, innovative policies, and emerging technologies. These 5 living labs were in 5 cities, the cities of Madrid, Stockholm, Munich, Turku in Finland, and Russia in Bulgaria. And these cities demonstrated and tested these innovative sustainable mobility solutions in peripheral areas, combining new policies, technologies, and soft measures. And what's important to know about the project is that it tackles 2 important areas that have previously received maybe less attention in urban mobility policies. This is on the one hand, innovative solutions for sustainable mobility of people in suburban city districts. And on the other, the focus of our webinar today, which is emission-free logistic in urban centers that keeps the balance between quality public space and efficient local economy. So just to describe in a bit more detail, these are the generic areas that the Eccentric project is focusing on. There are 50 measures of total that these cities have carried out in 6 thematic areas. One of them you can see in the bottom right, it's clean freight and logistics. And the other 5 are inclusive urban planning, mobility as a service, safe walking and cycling, clean public transport, and clean vehicles. So there's a lot in this project, and we cannot cover all of this, of course, in one webinar. So we have done a series of webinars. We already had several webinars about these other topics. And if they're interesting to you as well, you can check out the Eccentric website. You will find recordings of the webinar on our YouTube channel if you want to learn more about these other topics. And we are also currently producing so-called replication packages for practitioners. So if you're interested in the outcomes of some of these topic areas, you should be on the lookout for them. They will be online fairly soon, so then you can also learn more about these topics there. And we're also planning to have another webinar about mobility as a service, which I think is also a very relevant topic and might be interesting for some of you. So with this brief introduction to Eccentric, I would like to conclude my introduction, and I would like to hand over the word to Juan, who will tell us more about clean freight and logistics in Eccentric. Emma, if you could please give Juan presenter rights.
Hi. Well, good afternoon. Thank you. Sorry, thank you. I have to check if you are seeing the screen. It is okay, Paula?
Yes, it looks great.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you, Paula, and thank you, Clay, for organizing this webinar on urban freight. And I would like just to give a general overview of how Eccentric project has dealt with this topic. And the first consideration was why freight on Eccentric? And well, the answer is because Eccentric was designed to address the remaining challenges that have been received less attention in urban mobility policies. And the first one was suburban areas. This is why the name is Eccentric. But the second one that has identified, and this is the other main point of the project, is urban freight, because it's something that despite its significant impact on traffic and emissions, is typically neglected for municipal authorities. And in only few cities you will see with someone in authority specifically responsible for urban logistics. We have the lack of people specifically appointed for that. Maybe the exception will be Stockholm with Robin today here, but it's really rare to have this kind of position inside the city councils. And furthermore, there is a paradigm shift on urban freight due to the digital disruption. We are facing changes in consumer behaviors towards online shopping, the e-commerce, new trends. So at the end, we have a complex scenario in constant change and expected to grow in more than 60% by 2050, according to the European estimations. So this is the reason. I think there are good reasons on that, and how we have organized that. Well, we have different measures included in this work package, and in two main clusters: the efficient supply chains and clean freight vehicles, but of course interconnected. And there are 7 measures. We will have a very quick overview on them, but I would like to stress here that we have a public bodies, the 4 cities, I mean Stockholm, Munich, Turku, and Madrid, as a partner, because one of the main goals was not only technology and innovation, but also to have this city perspective to promote regulations and to foster the clean and efficient urban distribution. So this is important to have these public and private entities, and also these research institutes, of course, in this kind of projects, but working together in each measure. And well, now in the cluster of efficient supply chains, we have tried to work in the different potential policy options recognized by the European Community Studies on urban logistics, that are the options on how to change delivery collections, cargo bikes as a potential vehicle or for zero emission freight. Of course, the peak of deliveries that we will see later with the Stockholm measures, but of course, most of the measures are based on consolidation schemes, because, well, this principle of connecting individual senders and receiver via efficient hubs. So we have had different consolidation schemes, some of them based on consolidations in the periphery, but other ones consolidation solutions in the inner city, and also trying to combine with these clean vehicles. Of course, this is something always combined. About these consolidation schemes, for example, we will see here in this scheme the measure of Stockholm that has tested an innovative waste logistic scheme with the material. Now it's like a reverse direction. It's going from the inner city and avoiding all the environmental impact of many trucks transporting waste from civil works. So they have been tested the potential of using great barks to consolidate heavy masses for cement out of the city, and so they have been avoiding congestion and also improving the environmental conditions for this kind of transport. We have had another more classic consolidation scheme in Madrid, and Enrique will present later on. And also, a part of this peripheric consolidation, we have tested two approaches of consolidation inside the urban area, and both of them have been implemented in Munich. The first one that you can see now in the screen combines cargo bike delivery with a flexible package system. This also have the added value of emission-free last mile delivery with cargo bikes. But I would like to stress here that the innovation on using public land, I mean the macro depots, these kind of boxes were installed on the streets, and it's an interesting example of the agreement and how this strategic land use from the city, and this public-private collaboration in one supply chain. And this is, I think, it's not a speaking points. They are just part of the supply chains of the different logistic operators. And the other one is neighborhood oriented. It's a concierge that has not only functions of a central point for parcel pickup or drop off and final delivery by bike, but also has these other values, neighborhood center, by offering a variety of additional services. And it has been also very interesting to see how the concept of mixed uses. In that case, this is not only viable, economically viable with the logistic use, so they have to, reinvent new uses and to incorporate different services to the neighborhoods, but also it has become a neighborhood center or a social center. So it's also interesting to see how this mixed use and community as a community point.
Juan, we lost you there for a second. We can't hear you anymore.
Pictures, you see the fully electric truck in Madrid, and the bottom on the left is the biomethane, the biogas fuel vehicle in Turku, and on the right the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle in Stockholm, also linked to the night delivery that we will see later. So this it's important to say that these vehicles have been specifically designed or modified by Eccentric bearing in mind that they have to be operated in real life conditions. I mean, it's part of the current urban supply chain. This is not only a pilot specifically or different than the normal work. And well, oh, sorry, I would like to this one. We have a small question poll for all of you, just regarding the barriers that we have about the uptake of clean vehicles. Which are the, or what do you think are the main barriers? We have well, select some of them related with these available options, or the higher investment costs, or well, limited performance. I don't know how.
Yeah, we can launch the poll now. So this will be a question to the entire audience. My colleague Elma will be able to launch the poll question. You can see it on your screen now. So everyone has the option to choose, what do you think are the main barriers to the uptake of clean vehicles for freight fleets? Is it few commercially available options adapted to logistics? Is it maybe higher investment costs? Is it the need for specific fueling charging stations? Or could it be a combination of the above three? We will keep the poll open until a majority of the audience has voted. So please cast your vote now. It would be interesting to hear everyone's perspective. So just answer what you think, even if you're not an expert, of course.
Yeah, what is clear is that we have these several challenges to jeopardize the widest spread application for urban fleets, and some of them are, well, bigger than others, but maybe also the perception is important on that.
All right, so we've closed the poll, and we can now see the results. According to our audience, an overwhelming majority says that a combination of the above three is to be blamed as the main barrier. But among the three, the few commercially available options adapted to logistics is the most voted for option, together with high investment costs. So the need for specific fueling, not so much.
Yeah, it's interesting that, because even for the purposes of the project, it has been necessary to adapt the internal combustion engine or directly create a prototype, as in Madrid, because there are not so many with this kind of trucks. There are no so many commercially available options. But well, talking about the barriers and challenges and all how to deal with those challenges. This is clear that we need to be, I mean, like a parallel actions from public sector in order to become this kind of vehicles to become a feasible choice for logistic companies. And well, these considerations leads to the last part of my presentation, that it's about the policy tools, because from the beginning we have the idea that not just to test a specific technological measures, but also to work on this kind of private, public-private combination. And
Juan, can I ask you to wrap up soon so we can keep within the time limit?
Yes. This is the what we have been working. We have been working with these different policy tools, and we have some examples like the Stockholm frame plan or Madrid Central, the area of restriction, that it is very important to work on those measures, not only the technical, but those planning, regulation, and partnership. And just the last one is this, just to say that during the work package, well, the Eccentric has produced these different technical documents with the main information about the design, the implementation, and evaluation phases of the different measures. And well, these are the numbers of these deliverables or documents, technical documents. We are happy to share with you once published. Thank you. Thank you. What is my contact details and everything, and well, ready to, if there is any question now or after.
Great, thanks so much, Juan. And I think let's definitely open the floor for questions. So far, I haven't received any, but we also have time at the end to ask some more general questions, especially as you already said, you gave a broad overview of all the different approaches that have been taken within Eccentric to tackle this really broad and interesting area. So I would say, as there's no questions, I just want to hand over the mic immediately, and then we can maybe take some more time afterwards, because we will hear another assessment of the situation from a different perspective. We will hear from Rafael Ruiz from ARUP. So Rafael, I will give the floor to you to speak a bit more about logistics and freight in relation to the Corona crisis. You need to unmute your microphone.
All right, just checking that you can see my screen, the presentation.
Yes, it looks great. Yeah, it looks very good.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right, so thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to be part of this seminar. We were requested to talk about the importance of logistics of freight and its relation to the coronavirus. In the end, coronavirus has affected everything we've got around, and obviously logistics is a fundamental part of the system. That although it has affected some areas more than others, the impact has been immense. I want to start with a very quick introduction of ARUP. ARUP is an independent firm of designers, planners, engineers, architects, and technical specialists working across every aspect of today's built environment. What I want to highlight is the importance of the first word, independent, for various reasons, but one of them is that we reinvest part of our benefits in research and in other activities, like being more in touch in organizing in skills networks. And the ideas I'm going to present in this seminar are the result of that work. We combine local knowledge with global experience. We work in 33, we've got offices in 33 countries, 88 offices, and we're more than 15,000 staff. One of those activities that we did with our investment or the interest of the staff working for ARUP is that 2 years ago we made 50 years of transport planning as a discipline. And one of the exercises that we did is in those offices where there's transport planning, we ask transport planners to think about what the city, right now that we've made 50 years, think about your city and what it's going to be like in 50 years time. I'm going to present some of the results and highlighting more the coincidences in many of the cities. For instance, this is what transport planners in the UK thought London is going to be in 2068. The main ideas that I want that the people, the transport planners coincide with the megacity organization in the megacities, also flexible and working and also drones for logistics and also freight pipelines into the CBD. And those are the same ideas that you can see both in New York, for instance, in 2068, Singapore, or even Madrid. And if you think, obviously, the importance of freight and the possibilities that could have some pipes into the city center, or drones for minor deliveries, and also flexible working and some sort of communications, and how this has changed before coronavirus, the crisis, and after the crisis, it is immense. So another example of this foresight and organization of thoughts around some disciplines is the work that I'm going to present, is the 7 trends in logistics. What we believe that are the trends in the main trends in logistics, and how the coronavirus has affected some of them. These are the 7 trends. As you can see, or you can imagine, the coronavirus has affected more of these trends, or in a different intensity some of these trends. A stronger and global supply chains and greater global balance, new logistic players from the capital market, big data, design and production, the rise of e-commerce and last mile logistics, management of large portfolio of logistic assets, automation and robotics as a driver of change, and resilient, adaptive and sustainable logistic assets. This project that you're presenting has got some elements that could well fit in some of these trends. Just an example, the first one, strong and global supply chains and greater global balance. Logistics is the link between producers or industry and customers and markets. The pandemic brought a lockdown, which in the end was translating in lack of supply of basic products that are produced far away. So even before the pandemic, we could see that the resilience of territories depends to a large extent in the ability to maintain supply chains working. The coronavirus, just an example, stopped that supply chain, so made things much more difficult than they were before. So we could say that the crisis has been kind of a catalyst to give more action to some of these trends. For instance, we see in the medium term that will be an enhancement of local industrial and logistics assets, a repatriation of critical industry. So perhaps it doesn't make sense that all the industry or all the supplies produced in one country, the made in China theories, and there's clear an attempt to mitigate the risk, regionalizing or bringing closer the production points, and also the logistic costs will go down. Another trend in logistics is that there's new players in the capital markets. As Juan was saying, we've got a lack of resources that will be needed to find and to fund some of the new activities, and it happens that the logistics sector is very attractive to them. Big data, design and production. I want you to start this trend with the word responsibility, which is one of the things that make logistics so critical. And responsibility in the sense that is the ability to respond consumers, and I add at the appropriate time. This is something that has been completely shaken during the pandemic due to the lockdown. Obviously, data is key for planning, and planning is key to survive for many companies. We need planning to understand what we consumers we like in the future. Should I expand my business or my store or my platform? Should I buy new delivery vehicles or different technologies? Obviously, data and sensor-driven production lines and micro data collection will allow factories and supply chains to react in real time to changes in the market. In the past, it was very difficult to know all the inventories in the factories and the platforms. Now we need almost in real time what consumers are consuming, what do they need, what do they want, and react and plan accordingly. The rise of e-commerce and last mile logistics. This is perhaps a good moment to launch the poll I had. Is a very simple question about what your behavior regarding e-commerce has been before, during, and after the pandemic. Because obviously it's something that has been in the media and everyone has been discussing for a long time.
Yeah, so we do a mini survey now to confirm whether or not this has changed. Everyone can please answer the question: what were your e-commerce habits before the corona lockdown?
Correct, because obviously this helps to understand, even with our own example, the ideas of how coronavirus has been a catalyst for some of the logistics activities.
So please, everyone, yep, there we go. We've already closed the poll. We've gotten some results. I think you can all see them. The majority occasionally shops online or has shopped online, and some at an intermediate level. Very few inexistent and very few high e-commerce activities. So I think we should just go to the next poll immediately.
Yes.
So what was your e-commerce habits during the Corona lockdown? Has there been a change? Was it occasional, still inexistent, or maybe intermediate or even high? So I hope everyone has voted. I think we can close the poll. We see a bit of a shift, I think, from occasional to intermediate, with 38% answering intermediate, before occasional was the strongest answer. So that's interesting, I guess, Rafael, for you to see also. And then let's have the last question. This is the same question, but asking after the lockdown, in terms of e-commerce habits and online shopping after the lockdown. So what are everyone's e-commerce habits now that most lockdowns have ended? Maybe they've changed, maybe you've maintained the same habit as during the lockdown, or maybe gone back to before. Let's have a look at the results. Aha, that's interesting. It's in fact, it has gone to occasional online shopping, but also a little bit more inexistent online shopping. Both of these have risen again in the after lockdown survey. But if I remember correctly, the intermediate is still a little bit higher than it was as in before the lockdown. And the high also seems to be a bit higher with 18%.
There you go. So basically all human behavior is going to be affected by this, but in what we're talking about, which is logistics, it's going to have some repercussions for companies as a business and also for governments and organizations to organize all that. And the rise of e-commerce, as Juan and your project, this interesting project is about, is how to plan for the future and how to cope with the rise of e-commerce in cities. There are many measures that can be taken, and you've been discussing this or analyzing this in this project. I want to keep the time close to what we agreed, so I'm gonna fly through the last 3 trends in logistics. Obviously, one is the management of large portfolios of logistic assets. The sector has advocated for several years in an integrated management of increasingly complex and diversified portfolios, again, with the intention or the idea of diversify risk. It's as a car park operator that, in a way to diversify risk, they own or they try to have as many different types of car parks spaces from airports, hospitals, and all that to diversify risk. This is the same with logistics and logistic facilities. Automation and robotics as a driver of change. Obviously, this is automation and robotics will force a rethinking of logistics. As you can imagine, perhaps we were not as, although everybody thought about some companies that are highly roboticized and digital, that we could think.
I'm sorry, Rafael, actually we can't see your presentation at the moment.
No,
I don't know if the problem is with you or with us, but we will just revoke your presenter rights for a second and then make you a presenter again.
Okay, very good. All right.
Yep, that looks good. Now we can see your presentation again. Thank you. Sorry for that.
No worries, no worries. So perhaps we were thinking that some companies were very robotized and the like, but in order to cope with the peak in demand due to the coronavirus, they had to work double shifts or even hire more people. So obviously this in the future is going to change with the automation and robotics. And the last one is the resilient and adaptive and sustainable logistic assets. Obviously, when we need the logistics infrastructure to be resilient, to be able to adapt to changes, not only because of changes or intensive changes like the coronavirus, but also in order to protect again the climate change. So that's why we are the world is investigating towards either pipes to deliver goods or clean fuel fleets and all that as you've been discussing or researching in this interesting project. And this is the end of my presentation. I am aware that I've flown through many of those aspects, but I'm free to having a discussion at your convenience.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rafael. I think this was a really interesting overview, not just in relation to the corona crisis, but also just in relation to trends in the logistics sector that obviously affect some of the work that has been done in the Eccentric, but also have an impact on how cities in general plan logistics, freight, etc. Combined with, of course, the environmental aspects that this project is obviously also about. Yeah, I would like to open the floor for questions. If the audience has any questions for either Rafael or Juan at this moment, please type them in the question pane. Yeah, and as I said before, we also have time for questions towards the end more, and then you will also be able to ask some questions. Yeah, and of course, we will be making these presentations available. So if you want to read up on some of the interesting points that Rafael just made, you will be able to do that too. Okay, let's give the audience another minute to see, but if there's questions or not. But otherwise, I would say let's move on and hear a bit more about what cities are doing in this field, because we have two cities here today with us, the city of Madrid and the city of Stockholm. And first of all, we will be hearing from Enrique from the city of Madrid. And he will present to us what the city has implemented in terms of efficient and clean logistics for freight distribution in Madrid. So I would like to give the floor to Enrique from the city of Madrid. We can see your presentation now. It was working fine.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can also hear you, yes. And
okay.
Yeah, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the involvement of the city of Madrid in the Work Package 7 of CIVITAS Eccentric project, focused on last mile operations within the city center. First thing I want to quote are the partners that have been involved in the two measures that we have developed during the project. The first measure was focused on the development of a consolidation center operated by our logistic partner, FM Logistic, and the second measure has been focused on the production or the building, the commercialization of an ultra low emissions truck suitable for last mile operators working within the city. As I mentioned, our partners have been the Universidad Politécnica from Madrid, our technical university. They have been in charge of the research work of the two measures. The second partner has been the city council, coordinating both measures. The logistic partner mentioned before, FM Logistic, and the technical or the engineering partner that was the company Avia 21, specialized in the design of trucks and lorries adapted to municipal services as waste treatment, waste management, and that kind of vehicles. Before starting to talk about the two measures, I just want to mention that at the beginning of the CIVITAS ECCENTRIC project, the city was involved in the design of a new
Enrique, your audio is cutting out. We can't hear you. Enrique, can you hear me? Because we can't hear you, unfortunately, at the moment.
The air quality and climate change plan were can you hear me? Or,
yeah, we can hear you. It was just cutting out for okay. A couple of seconds.
Okay, the most remarkable measures I want to mention affecting freight traffic and freight regulations under the frame of the air quality plan are Madrid Central, our zero emission zone that covers the whole shape of the central district, and where we have implemented important traffic restrictions regarding focus on freight traffic, regarding weight and vehicle emissions. Another remarkable measure taken and developed under the frame of the plan was the launching of a new sustainable mobility municipal ordinance or by law with the commitment of improving the freight traffic regulations. So under this new approach or these new patterns designed for improving the sustainability of our mobility systems, we started to work in the CIVITAS ECCENTRIC measures focused on freight operators in the city. I'm going to talk first about our prototype. It was our measure 7.6, and its title is a prototype for an ultra-low emission cargo vehicle. In a first moment, in a first phase, in a first stage of the measure, what we wanted to know was what were the logistic operators expecting from the market or from the car manufacturers or truck manufacturers market. So we wanted to know what type of vehicles are more suitable for freight operators just to operate in this kind of model to take freight from a consolidation center just to do the last mile operations inside the city center. So our partner research, the Polytechnical University, conducted a study among 27 freight operators in the city, just with the aim of identifying which is the most suitable truck typology just to operate within the city. Their conclusions was that the 12-ton truck was the most versatile typology for freights according to city regulations on traffic and according to the demand of freight operators. On a second level, our second concern was just to identify which clean technology was most proper just to operate inside the city center with last mile operators. And we did another analysis about our new regulations on freight traffic and everything led us to think that electric technology was the most suitable technology for all the freight operators, because all the advantages that the city offers to electric vehicles, you cannot get that advantages operating with combustion engines trucks. For example, electric vehicles have free 24-hour free access to our zero-emission zone, Madrid Central. They get free parking within the on-street parking service area that covers the first ring of the city, and they have an easier access to pedestrian streets and the most of the restricted areas of the city. So all our questions were answered with the study conducted by the Polytechnic University. On a second phase, we just wanted to set the main features of the electric vehicle, and you can see we wanted to produce a vehicle designed for freight operators located inside the third ring of the city. That means that the consolidation center are located less than 10-15 kilometers away from the city center. The main features of the vehicle, you can check here on the right. The battery range of the electric truck is around 80 kilometers. We are expecting to implement its range in an ulterior commercialization phase. The maximum speed is 90 kilometers per hour, because it's supposed to be an urban vehicle, just using the national roads accessing to the city, but we don't have a special need in terms of the speed. The maximum weight of the vehicle, the truck, is around 12 tons with a load capacity around 8 tons. The charging system is an unusual charging system for cars on the street, so we can charge the vehicle in around 11 kilowatts per hour. These are the main components of the vehicle. The chassis was provided by Iveco. The engine was provided by Siemens, and the battery train, that's the brand of the supplier. This is the final look of the electric prototype. The box was provided by FM Logistic, that is our logistic partner, and it was retrofitted from a second-hand vehicle. We have just passed the third phase of the project. We have done successfully an on-road test. At this moment, just working with under the frame of Avia 21 operations. We have proved that our range is enough for the operation that we were expecting to offer to our operators, freight operators.
Oh, it seems like we lost Enrique for a second. Let's hope that this is not a permanent problem. Otherwise, we might have to switch presentations. Enrique, you're unfortunately not with us anymore. And I've just received a question from Michael, who's asking if there will be a playback link later. We will make this webinar available online so you can see it on the YouTube channel. And I would say this is really unfortunate. I'm very sorry. It seems to be related to Enrique's internet connection. but I would say if this situation stays the same as it seems to be, I would suggest that we move directly to Robin. And maybe we can hear back from Enrique afterwards, or we can also maybe, Robin, before you start, sorry, Juan, if you want to say a couple of final words about this truck, because I know you're also working in Madrid and you are aware what's happening there. Maybe you can give some final conclusions about barriers of implementation. And we also have a question here about when the truck is going to be available in Madrid, like when you will actually be able to use it commercially.
Well, just to point out that this is the first step was a prototype, but the Avia engineering and we are working with them to prepare a small set of the first batch of trucks to be study the marketability for that, and because all the type approval of battery and the chassis, all this, and it has been a lot of effort on that, has been done with a view of future marketability, not as a prototype, but as a commercial truck. So it will be, ready for this a small series of trucks of that, and we are working with of course with Avia and with FM Logistic as a first partner of that, and also with the food market here in Madrid. It's a hub that we have here in Madrid for food.
So I also understand that those will be the first partners that will be using the commercialized vehicle.
Yeah. The producers and FM Logistic, because this measure is combined with the Consolidation Center, that it's also the other part is more a more classical consolidation center in the outskirts of Madrid and operated by FM Logistics. Great, also with other electric vans and so on. Not only with the truck, of course. This is just taking advantage of that.
Yeah, okay, great. That's great to hear. And then we have a question relating to that. Maybe you don't know this yet, but Chloe is asking how many of the trucks are going to be commercialized, if you already know that.
I don't know. I think they are thinking in a small series, but we are talking about around 10 or 20 units. But it depends. They are studying and how because of course it will it will be not only the FM Logistics, of course. They are searching for other users, and even the city was studying the opportunity to have like has Stockholm made with vans, to have a kind of a truck owned by the city to be tested by potential final users of that. Just as a test fleet. So we are thinking if it's possible, but it is strange and it's difficult to buy a truck by a city just for test purposes. We are struggling with these administrative issues, but we would like to have also this opportunity.
Yeah, and maybe then at some point this is also something that would be interesting for other European cities and countries to look into, if they can make use of this type of truck. Yeah.
And also we will, if it's possible, we will send with from Avia like the leaflet, the commercial leaflet for this prototype that they are producing, just to have a view for the attendees if they want to have a look of what it looks like a commercially available truck. They are working on that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much for filling in a little bit about the future developments also of this truck. Unfortunately, we couldn't hear the second part of the presentation, but I think this is fine. We can make the presentation available afterwards, so anyone who wants to look up the follow-ups on the slides will of course be able to do so. And I think now I would like to pass on the word to Robin from the city of Stockholm, who will be speaking more about night deliveries in relation to logistics and freight also. And as I said before, if there's any questions for any of the presentations, just feel free to type them in the question pane. But now, Robin, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it looks great.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Paul and Iklay, for organizing this seminar and for giving me the opportunity to share results from and experiences from Stockholm. So as already mentioned, I will present how we work with night deliveries in Stockholm and what we've done within the Eccentric project. But just to give you some context, I would like to give a general introduction. So I represent the transport department of the city of Stockholm. And if you would summarize our responsibility in one sentence, you could say that we are responsible to maintain an accessible and functioning city all day long, all day and night, and every day of the year, basically. That's it. And while doing so, of course, we're working with all of the parameters, as you're familiar with urban transport, safety and security, also security, accessibility, and availability of different people and vehicles and users, and also trying to achieve an attractiveness and a vibrant city, a livable city. This is an image where often we showing an ideal street if we would, or I don't know if it is ideal, but this is really if we would give the space needed to all users and groups on a specific street. And as you can see, this example is 50 meters wide, and relating that to a typical main street of central Stockholm, you can see that it's less than half of that width, which means, of course, that we have to prioritize between different users, and we have to be innovative when we develop solutions in order to secure all the aspects, as I already mentioned. At the same time, in Stockholm, as in most cities throughout the world, we experience a very strong trend towards more livable and healthy streets, because no longer does streets only constitute a link for movement of vehicles, but it's also a large part of the public space we have in cities. So it's increasingly important for us to create a place where people want to meet and stay, and not only to transport and pass by. This image shows an example of our summer pedestrian streets that we do in Stockholm, and of course, so what as you can see, we do pocket parks. We provide with extra place for restaurants to have servings outside, etc. And this is to show how we can use the streets in another way. And of course, as you can see, there are restaurants, there are a lot of people meeting here. Such an environment also demands a lot of transport, a lot of goods deliveries coming in, and waste being transported out even every day. So this is also increasing the challenges for the availability for freight. And as Juan mentioned, we have a freight plan in Stockholm, which is sort of our platform or strategy when working with urban freight. The purpose of this plan is really to take a holistic approach to freight and to coordinate all the stakeholders within the city, but also the collaboration between the city and external stakeholders when developing urban freight. So the idea is to increase accessibility and predictability for freight transport, but at the same time, of course, reduce the negative impact from freight relating to local environment, but also climate change, of course. And we have a firm belief that we have to do this in close collaboration between the city and other stakeholders. And we're doing a range of different measures and initiatives which could be organized in these 6 focus areas. The freight plan is also available in English online if you're interested. So when it comes to night deliveries and what we often call off-peak transport in Stockholm, it's really about why are we working with this? It's really about finding a way to use the existing infrastructure in a more efficient way. This image shows the traffic flow distribution over the day in central Stockholm. And as you can see, we have, you can see the morning and the afternoon rush hour and quite high, quite high level in between too. But as you can see, the evening and night and early morning, we have a system that is much less congested than the rest of the day, which means that if we could find a way to shift part of the transport from the peak to the off-peak, this would be a very efficient way of reducing congestion, reducing emissions, and at the same time securing availability for the freight that we need to transport. So the idea is basically to, instead of having all the transport being done when the system looks like this, do it when the system looks like this. It's almost exactly the same angle, but not really, but it's the same street in which is like a highway link in central Stockholm. And why? What are we focusing on when working with this? We can see a lot of several challenges connected to off-peak transport, and you could perhaps, I guess you can organize them in different ways, but one way to see it is regulation and market-related challenges. So when it comes to regulation, the big obstacle for us in Stockholm is that we have very strict noise restrictions on a national level that we have to fulfill as a city to not disturb residents during the night. This has caused that we have a night ban for heavy lorries in all of the central Stockholm, all the local grid. So we basically have to work with permits, giving out special permits for those who transport during the night. And what we want to do is not giving specific project-related permits, but to learn what criteria should be used in order to achieve a silent and non-emitting transport, so that we can have a function-based regulation, and based on that develop new routines and processes for monitoring working. Perhaps we need to differentiate between the local and the local network and the main street network. Of course, we're also depending on challenges relating to the market, such as development of silent and non-emitting vehicles and equipment, staff being willing to work at night, changing the logistic scheme, of course, to permit this. And we started already in 2014 with a pilot project in Stockholm with food deliveries to both little stores and restaurants. And from this project, we learned that it's the delivery noise, the last few meters, that is the biggest obstacle, and that it was easier to do deliveries in more busy areas with a higher level of background noise. And within the Eccentric project, we were able to launch a new case of deliveries. We collaborated with the KTH, the Technical University of Stockholm, and to do a procurement which led to Scania, Harvey Logistics, and McDonald's being the partners that we continued working with. And what we could launch in January 2019 was night deliveries to 6 McDonald's restaurants in central Stockholm. So we worked in close collaboration together with the different partners in order to find this vehicle is Scania's first plug-in hybrid, I should mention, which meant that we wanted to find locations to also install charging infrastructure so that we could maximize the electric range of the vehicle. So we've done that, and we've also been inspecting all the locations, changing regulation on loading zones, since 5 of the restaurants have their deliveries done through on-street loading zones. Here is an image to show you how the logistics of it works. Harvey has a terminal south of Stockholm, outside of the city, and a full truck has food enough to deliver to 2 restaurants. And what we've done here is we wanted to use the electric engine when when it's most beneficial. So we wanted to use it in the central city, where we have residents living and where we have problems with air quality as well. So as you can see, the 3 numbers relating to parts of the route, you can see that the combustion engine with biodiesel called HVO was used on the highway network, and when entering the city, the truck was switched to electric engine, and this was made through geofencing. So this we had Scania to design a zone covering all of the inner city of Stockholm. So when the truck entered the city, it automatically switches to electric engine, and we're also using geofencing to reduce the speed of the truck, so that it's to improve safety and security in resident areas. Later on during the project, we were also able to add a second case of night deliveries that had been launched in parallel to the project, and we were able to evaluate it within CIVITAS Eccentric project. And this is a case of waste collection. So it's the waste that has to be transported out from the city. And this vehicle shown here is part of another collaboration we have in Stockholm, which is a commercial consolidation collaboration called Älskade Stad, or Beloved City. So this is a slow-moving electric truck used to collect recycling materials, dry waste from offices and stores in central Stockholm. And this waste is being taken to underground facilities where it's compacted. And it's those waste compactors in the underground facilities that we are now transporting out from the city with a biogas truck during the night. And some results, we did a evaluation of the McDonald's case using, sorry for that, I hope you can see my screen. Based on connected vehicle data, and can you still hear me and see the screen? I don't know, it's something shifting.
Yeah, we can still hear you and see the screen.
Can you also see that it shifts, that it like exits presentation mode? I don't know what it's doing.
And now it just exited presentation mode, but now it's back, and we can see the slide with the results.
Thank you, thank you. So as you can see, we have seen a reduction of emissions based on this. It's of course mainly related to using electric engine, maximizing that during the transport. And what we were very happy to see was that we could validate the results from I'm not sure what's happening here. It's something is happening.
Are you having troubles with switching the slide?
I don't know. It's the go-to tool that does things of itself. Can you see the screen now?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. Now we could validate the travel time reduction from the earlier projects that we done. We had seen in those projects that roughly 30% travel time was reduced. And since we had a more secure method of collecting data in this project, we're happy to see that it was at the same level. Harvey also noticed a delivery precision increase, which is very important for them in their commercial agreement with McDonald's restaurants. As in previous projects, we've also noticed better work environment due to less stressed drivers, since it's a very stressful and environment to work in during the daytime when it's hard to find a free loading zone. And also the delivery noise, we used together with KDH, they used more sophisticated tools to measure the noise this time than in previous cases. And what we've seen that actually we can notice added noise even in the noisy areas. So even if we have electric range and we have silent material, it's very important to work with all aspects. So both the code of conduct for the driver, of course, and also to have silent equipment and material using for the last meters delivery from the truck to the restaurant in this case. Some results from the other waste transport case was that we saw 8 to 11% lower emissions, 25 to 30% travel time reduction, and also much better predictability, which meant reducing costs for the companies. And this is due to in the daytime, it's very hard because traffic is so unpredictable. So it's hard to know if they can empty all the, if they can do 7 compactors or 11 compactors on one shift, for example. But normally they have to empty them all because there's no new waste always being added every day. So they have to be empty for the next day. And due to that, they have a lot of unplanned overtime when doing daytime transport. That doesn't occur during the night, which was very interesting to hear, since it's always the route is always done as planned. And also in this case, the transport company and logistics can notice a better work environment for the drivers due to much calmer traffic situation in the city. This case was not so much challenging when it comes to noise, since all the loading and unloading is done in underground facilities in non-residential areas. We've also continued to work with off-peak transport within a new project called SUS, and that we're doing within EIT Urban Mobility. And we're continuing using the experience from CIVITAS ECCENTRIC to launch a new regulation in Stockholm, as I already mentioned. Yeah, that was my last slide. Hope I didn't speed through it too much. We do have reports as well if you're interested in more details. And I forgot to mention, but I also did a poll question. So perhaps if the audience would like to share their perspective on off-peak transport in their cities.
So thanks. We have a poll question now for everyone to answer. What is the biggest challenge, according to you, relating to the introduction of off-peak transport in your city? Actually, the first option is it's not relevant. There's no congestion during daytime. Or is it maybe opening hours of receivers? Is it a lack of interest from relevant stakeholders? Maybe noise restrictions or disturbing neighboring residents? Or could there be any other challenges relating to the introduction of off-peak transport in your city. If you're not working for a city, maybe just give an estimation for the city you live in. I hope the audience has had a chance to vote. Yeah, we now can have a look at the results. Let's see what the audience has answered. So this question, I should say, was multiple choice. So the percentages do not add up to 100, more than 100. So you could have picked various options, but the most popular one, and I think, Robin, this resonates with your presentation as well, is noise restrictions and disturbing neighboring residents, which is closely, well, not so closely, which is followed by the opening hours. 55% voted for that. And then a less popular reason is the lack of interest from relevant stakeholders. Only 5% of attendees answered that this is not relevant. And then we also have 15% who said that it could be other issues. So maybe if those that said other could type their answers into the question pane so we can know which ones these other issues could be. But yeah, I think with that, Robin, I think there is maybe quite some interest for not only your truck, but also the truck developed by Madrid, because it seems like noise seems to be one of the major issues. Yeah, so yeah, do you want to comment on this, or should we just open the round of questions?
No, it's interesting to hear. Thank you. I had problems getting back to the audience view, so I couldn't really see the poll until it had already ended. Sorry, but interesting to hear that noise. It seems to be quite even if you don't have national noise restrictions, you still might have complaints from people, and politicians always have to relate to people being disturbed, since they're also voters, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I would also like to open the floor for questions, not only for Robin, but also for the other presenters. I can see Enrique's back with us as well. Good to see you back, and apologies again for the technical issues that we experienced there. Maybe I have a question for me, for you, Robin, but also for Enrique. Have the organizations that you worked with to develop this these two vehicles, have they already indicated interest for developing or building more of these vehicles, using them in other contexts? Or what would you say would promote the uptake of these types of vehicles in general in cities and for logistics and deliveries?
Perhaps I could start from what I've heard from our industry partners. They're very interested in, or they believe it functions very well with this plug-in hybrid. And the idea with this sort of truck is to use electric engine where it's really needed. And since investment cost is still quite high in fully electric trucks, and also since there are still some obstacles related to charging infrastructure and some insecurities related to that, I believe this sort of a hybrid truck could be a step on the way to go fully electric, which means that it's they can still fulfill criteria in resident areas, being quiet and non-emitting, but with a lower investment cost and less unsecurity than it would be with fully electric trucks today, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. Maybe Juan and Enrique, you can comment on this from Madrid's perspective. What do you think would promote the uptake of such vehicles on a larger scale? I think you need to. Yeah, you can hear me. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, as we mentioned before, we want to support Avia 21 in the commercialization phase. We rely on this prototype, and we see that it has a clear market within the city, and we want to support them, offering them our channels to communicate with operators, with freight operators within the city, and we want to explore even using the vehicle in in municipal services as waste collection, that kind of service. So sorry, I have lost my voice. So this takes part of our plan of communication and commercialization of the vehicle.
Yeah, yeah, great. Thanks. We have a question from the audience also. I don't actually, admittedly, don't fully understand the question, so maybe Robin, this will mean something to you, but otherwise I will ask the person to clarify. Ragnar is asking, is there a TCO analysis available on the operation? And I must admit, I don't know what TCO stands for, but maybe Robin, you do.
I guess it relates to total cost of ownership.
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, but
that makes sense.
I'm not sure I can answer this, but perhaps I can transfer the contact to the industry partners. And I also have some colleagues within the city that are more experts on vehicles and the fuels that could perhaps add their perspective.
Did you share your contact in the presentation for this person to contact?
On the last slide of the presentation is my email address. So feel free to contact me through email, and I will do my best to help you.
Great. Okay, so Ragnar, if you can then contact Robin about this particular point, that'd be great, and then you will hopefully get an answer to this too. I know that Robin, you need to leave quite on time, so I think we're approaching the end of the webinar. I just want to ask Juan if there may be some concluding points that you want to make about this topic and about also the things that we've heard during today's webinar. Then the floor is yours, and otherwise, again, the call for the audience, if there's any final questions, now is the time to ask them.
Well, it's just to mention that we have seen how the technical measures has been used by cities to create the policies and to create regulations. And I think in this moment, of course, we need regulations, we need planning, we need to integrate freight in planning. That is not always as obvious as we see now, or as we see when we go deep in this issue. But for this, the first step is to create a channel of collaboration and coordination with the stakeholders. We are learning from forefront cities as Stockholm or London or other cities how to create these partnerships, because we have a lack of data and a lack of understanding and how it moves, because it's as we have seen, is very in constant change, and we have seen the trends with Rafael. This is something we have to be very aware, and we need a specialist in city city bodies, I mean, or in city services. So this is, I think, a partnership is the first step. I will say, more than regulation or even and to put on planning. And so this is just the general consideration we have seen. Is maybe very obvious, but this is not so common to have this permanent channel of collaboration between the cities and stakeholders. Even sometimes it's difficult to identify who are the right stakeholders when we are talking about freight, because they are not only transport, they are logistics, they are big companies. So this is also a tough question.
Yeah, definitely. But definitely also good to start the conversation, as you see, and also learn about pilot projects such as the ones implemented by Madrid. Robin has to leave. Thank you so much for your really insightful presentation. Everyone will be able to access it. And I think with this, I also want to thank the other speakers. Thank you, Enrique, for presenting. Also, thank you, Rafael, for jumping in and providing this really appreciated perspective from Arup on the general trends in logistics and as they relate to the Corona crisis. And I think this was a very interesting webinar. I hope this has inspired some attendees to take some of the findings back into their cities. And maybe we will see some more low emission freight vehicles in European cities soon, among other things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So thanks so much, everyone, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
I hope to see
Thank
you
you
at
all.
future webinars as well.
Thank you. Thank you to you and all
Goodbye.
the attendees. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.